going on? Welcome in to our first NASCAR Raceday live show of 2024 for the Daytona 500. One day kind of later here with the rain out today, moved to tomorrow afternoon. What we're going to try to do throughout the season is try to do live shows Saturday night before so that there's plenty of time to rewatch Sunday morning whenever you get a chance. Sunday mornings don't work out good for me and Chris to get together. So maybe we can get together here some throughout the year. But again, starting out with the Daytona 500, want to go over a few general things about Jaeger Mom's Fantasy Sports and what kind of we've switched over from Patreon to what's called WAP. And I have all the links for all of our packages in the description. I'm going to share one second. I'm going to share my screen here to our WAP page. And this is where you can get all the packages, access to all of them. So our simplest one would be all sports, $25 a month, $225 for the year. All of our packages include a free trial, 2-day. If you do monthly, you're going to get the 2-day free trial, and then you would be charged the $25 a month. 7-day free trial with the yearly. So you can do $225 for the year. If you just want the NASCAR package, or you can do any of our sports, do a weekly, even daily and some monthly and yearly single sport package. You can do 5 a week, 15 a month, or 7 days free trial for the year package for NASCAR, which is $120. So all those links are in the description of this video. So be sure to check that out. That'll get you access into the Discord, and that is where you will get all of the sheets that are posted in there every day, back and forth between everybody in the community. So be sure to hop in there. I'm going to go ahead and jump right in to the NASCAR sheet. Little overview here. If you've not seen this before, of course, all of our top plays are highlighted throughout the week or closer, after to the race time after qualifying for sure. So you'll always have, a summary of the driver, car they're in, manufacturer, DK and FanDuel price, and where they're starting. Working across, you've got track history. So you can see here, this would be the fall race in column H. Column I is going to be the Daytona 500 last year, and then working its way back. Some averages of last 2 and last 10 at that track. Then you've got the track type history. So super speedway history from 2023, and some average running, average finish stats from that. And then you've got the current season form. Of course, this is last year right now. Practice and qualifying as we work across, and then what goes into our model. So each week this will be slightly different. Just for example, this week I've used qualifying inverse, which won't have any of that at non-super speedway tracks incorporated in the model, but we'll get into that here in just a bit. And then you've got the final ranking, which also comes back over here to column A, and then there out at the end as to where the model ranks then based on those attributes. We also have, and this is very important in a week like this, is the DK matrix. Also have this for FanDuel as well. It just gives every driver, it's sorted by DK price. It gives every driver, if they were to finish in a certain spot, how many DraftKings points would that be? And this is really helpful when you're comparing somebody like these top two, Blaney and Hamlin. So Blaney starting 8th Hamlin starting 8th versus Blaney in 32nd. So say Hamlin gets a 5th place finish, that'd be 42 DraftKings points, whereas Blaney, if he even just cracks the top 10, he's getting 56. So you can kind of work back and say the break even of a Hamlin 5th place finish at 42 is the equivalent of a Blaney 16th place finish at 43. So of course, on a week like this, we're not really looking at laps led and fastest laps points. They might get some along the way, but those will be very spread through the field. So going to hop right in. This week I'm going to do it a little different as far as I'm going to go through by starting position instead of by price. Usually I'm going to go in price tiers, but this week just being, different with super speedway racing, most all these races I'm going to go by starting position, because you really got to lump these into tiers in that way, because when you're building, and we've talked about this for years on these shows and in the chat, and every time we go to super speedway tracks throughout the year, Talladega, Daytona, now Atlanta, when we go to these tracks, or drafting tracks as they call them, it's just so variant. You've got to play place differential. The dominator points for laps led and fastest laps are not going to be concentrated more than likely to one or two guys throughout the race. So really have to work through who can get to the front and get, gives them a floor starting towards the back as well, but also the most upside by far. I'm going to look at these top 10 drivers, and the last thing before I jump into actually breaking down drivers, pricing doesn't matter at all on this slate. I mean, you can leave $5,000 on the table if you want to, especially in these big contests like the Millie Maker that they have this week for Cup. So don't be, if that's another reason I'm not going by price tier, because pricing doesn't matter at all to me here. Starting in this top 10 range, Logano and McDowell are on the front row. Logano's always been a good plate racer, but I rarely ever play anybody, or I don't think I've ever played a lineup with a person on the pole, maybe even from second on the front row at the Daytona 500. And it's just one of those things that, if they could definitely win the race. Both these guys are good plate racers. McDowell's won a Daytona 500 before here in 21. It's just one of those things that if they win, they're probably not getting enough dominator points to even be on the winning lineup. So you could see that case happen. Reddick, Bell, Elliott, all are fine plays as well, as far as normally if everything was equal. But starting in the top 5, I'm likely not getting to any of them. Same thing with 5 through 10. I mean, I don't have much interest in Cindric down to John Hunter Nemechek, and except for Denny Hamlin, and I think he'll be fairly popular. Of course, multiple Daytona 500 wins, starting 8th. He could run up there throughout the day, but he does like to sit back in these type of races to keep the car clean. So there's a lot of risk there with Hamlin and the others that are at the top of pricing. If you do run into salary constraints with Blaney and Kyle Busch being up there, I don't think you can prioritize Hamlin over them, even though he is one of the best, I say plate racers, but super speedway racers in the field. So might have slight exposure to Hamlin. I'm talking like 10% or something across a 20 lineup, so 2 out of 20. If I even get there, I think you could potentially look at taking the stand of fading Hamlin. Starting 8th, he's got a lot of downside. He's going to still be fairly popular, probably the most popular of any of the top 10 drivers. So I think you can definitely make the case to even fade, which I may end up there by the end of the day. Moving on down into the next range, 11 to 20. Start getting into some guys that I'm interested in. Eric Jones, decent, plate racer. Starting 11th, though, is pretty tough. 11 to 15 is all fairly tough. Really, Ty Gibbs would be my favorite. I expect a very good year out of him, but plate or super speedway racing is not his best. If you look at last year, out of the 6 races, he had 1 top 10 and 1 top 20. Not very good overall. I think he'll come into that a little bit more. Daniel Suarez had 5 top 20s out of 6, 1 top 5. I think he's decent, but again, I'm not prioritizing any of these guys. They're just still a little too far forward, and so many good plays behind. Now, before I get into all of this tier, kind of where we really start getting into the crux of plays that we like, the thing that I've always struggled at super speedway races is there's a lot of chalk. With guys like Ryan Blaney starting towards the back, Kyle Busch starting towards the back. A lot of these guys in the 20s and 30s, everybody likes to stack the back. And I've already got a question here, looks like in chat, about stacking the back. And this is one of the things, and, Kay says no to stack the back, but with Blaney, Kyle Busch, Reagan being chalk, how do you handle that? I think is what the question is. That's something I've struggled with. I mean, a lot of times you find yourself jamming a lot of these back markers, and then they still have just as likely a chance, to wreck as some of these front guys, right? So you run into that, and it just plays into the variance of super speedway racing. So I think the what I've kind of landed on is maybe limit some of these chalk guys that you have in a lineup. Don't play a Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney. Let me kind of scroll through some of these others that I think will be super high on. You can see as I get into the 30s, I have a lot of highlighted green plays, but maybe limiting Stenhouse, Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, David Reagan, all those in the same lineup. That maybe that's a lot of the build constructions that people go with. Maybe limiting that to 3 of the chalk guys if you can identify who are the top 5 on plays, because you really do want to have exposure to some of these other guys that are slightly high, a little more forward. And the only reason I say that is because they're going to be a little bit lower on, like a Brad Keselowski starting 16th. Very good super speedway racer. We know he's got the upside to win this race. Kyle Larson, even, I don't have him highlighted right now, but potentially could as a GPP play. He's not had very good luck at these type of races. William Byron, Chris Buescher is going to be one of the more popular, probably in the under 20 starting positions range, but just kind of limiting those 30s drivers to maybe 3. Or if you are playing more of them, maybe just trying to find out who's going to be the highest on and limiting, not playing all of them together, because that's where you get into trouble. You want to have lineups that take advantage of lower on pieces that inevitably are going to get to the front and finish in the front and dodge all the wrecks throughout the race. And that's what you want to have, instead of just congregating on all the chalk in these lineups and stacking the back completely. So I hope that makes sense a little bit more. But again, that's something I've always struggled with at these races, is playing what I think are the best plays. But ultimately, they have just as much a chance to wreck as people here in the 20s and forward. But you want them, if they can finish 10th to 15th, you would rather have that over a person starting 10th, finishing 6th. So you want more exposure, but you also don't want to jam them all in the same lineup. So Keselowski here at 16th, is the 16 to 20 range. Him and his teammate Chris Buescher both fall in that range. 1-2 in the fall race here last year. Buescher was 4th in the 500 last year, has always been very good at these races. I think both of them are very good plays. The other 2 teammates in that range, Kyle Larson and William Byron, have both struggled in these races quite a bit. I mean, Byron did win here in the fall of 2020, second here in the fall of 19. He had a win on a super speedway last year, so he improved a little bit. Starting 18th, I think he'll come in a little lower on, and 18th is still far enough back. So I think I would probably mix them in if you're playing 20 lineups or so, or more. So looking at that, that range, Buescher and Keselowski would be my favorites, 1-2, and then Larson and Byron to start, kind of just get started in the top plays range. Moving on into the 20s, you've got Chastain, Bubba Wallace, who's always ran really well at super speedways, of course, picking up his first win at one. I think you can play him at 24th. I think he's got a lot of upside at that starting position. Ryan Preece, Jimmy Johnson is in this range as well. Of course, running for his own team here with Toyota in the 84. I think he's a decent play as well. I think he'll come in a little bit lower owned. If he was starting 30th, he would be a little bit more chalky. Starting 23rd, probably not. And there's a difference. But ultimately, you're going to want guys that can get near that top 10 and a group of them in your lineup, a 6 group. It's basically shooting for a parlay, trying to get 6 top 10s or something of that effect, of top 15s maybe for a couple of them. But you want a lot of these guys, and you just got to kind of land on the magic ones back here that miss all the wrecks, right? So that's kind of that range. Kaz Gralla moves into the next. I would rather him be starting a little bit farther back. Truex has always had a little bit of a snake bite here at Daytona. LaJoy, he's been very good here. I think he's one of my top plays, starting 29th. I think he's got a lot of upside to finish forward here. Dinger has been always good in Xfinity, one of the top, really, in Xfinity with a lot of top 2 and 3 finishes at Daytona. Can he translate that over here? I think that's doable. He was 6th last year in the 500, so I think 28th. I think he's a good play. Barry's, this is not his cup of tea per se, and in the with the new team starting 30th, I think he'll be fairly low owned for guys back here in the 30s. So, he was 22nd here back when he was driving one of the Hendrick cars, probably Bowman's, I think, in the fall. So I think he could be a decent play there, starting 30th with the new team, taking over for Kevin Harvick. But LaJoy in that range would be one of my favorites. And then you move on into, the top plays, the top owned plays as well on the slate. Todd Gilliland struggled here at Daytona, but he had 4 top 20s and 6 super speedway races last year. That's pretty solid. Ryan Blaney got to be one of the top plays on if not the top play on the entire slate, along with Kyle Busch starting here in the 30s. Good equipment. Can they get through and not wreck? Austin Dillon, the teammate to Kyle Busch, a very good play as well. Ricky Stenhouse has the upside, as we saw last year, winning the Daytona 500. Now starting 35th. And then you've got the back markers of Herbst, Hemrick, Gregson, Reagan, Alfredo. Reagan's one of those guys, he's going to ride around in the back. He's going to try to be there at the end. If he's the last guy in your lineup trying to get a 15th place finish, I think that's more than doable. I mean, we've seen it in 2022 in both races here when he finished 8th and 9th. Not good equipment, just riding around in the back and being there at the end. Alfredo, sure, as long as he rides around as well. Gregson's in the best equipment of those very back markers. He was 5th here in the fall of 22. I think he's a solid play. All these guys are good plays. Again, you might want to limit how many you play in one lineup to 3. We're going to play with builds here on the sheet here in just a second. But I do want to, since this is the first race of the year, I have my rankings up. This is something that I will have every week throughout the year. Top tier, 9K and above, 75 to 89, and then 74 and below rankings. Again, I'm kind of going by starting position here on this show. Again, going forward, going by and doing rankings by price is, of course, going to be more helpful. So as you can see, I have Blaney, Kyle Busch, Keselowski, Hamlin, and Larson of those 9K and above in the top of my rankings. And then working down into the 75 to 89, Stenhouse, Busher, Bubba, Truex, Chastain, Jimmy, and Byron there. And then down into the value tier, Reagan, Dillon, Gregson, LaJoy, Dinger, Herbst, Priest, Berry. So you can kind of see as far as in the price tiers how I rank some of these drivers. Again, be sure to hop over. You can use one of the free trials, do the All Sports Package 7-day free trial if you do the annual subscription. I mean, you're not going to find anywhere with a $225 annual subscription and you're getting as many sports as we're covering here. NASCAR, college basketball's in full swing, getting ready to gear up for the tournament. Soccer, EPL, golf every single week. NBA every day, NHL every day, UFC. Tennis is one of those on and off. MLB will be back before you know it. College football, NFL, all these sports for $225 for the year. Not going to find that anywhere else, in a 7-day trial as well. So let's play with some quick builds, and then we'll go ahead and get out of here. Again, it's one of those races that's just about the variance and embracing it. So if you're looking at, kind of if I was running a single entry type build, you're going to start things out with with Blaney, in my opinion, and then kind of work down. And then, like I said, kind of want to max these back markers at 3. So let's just say that's in this build is Ricky Stenhouse and David Reagan. I mean, you could play 4. I wouldn't want the 4th, like in this build, to be Kyle Busch, because Blaney and Kyle Busch are going to be 2 of the most popular. Stenhouse and Reagan are going to be the others. So if you're playing another one back here, that's maybe when you would filter in Austin Dillon, Riley Herbst, Noah Gragson, Alfredo. One of those is your 4th. So I wouldn't maybe set a hard set rule in an optimizer or something telling it not to play 4 guys in the 30s. Then as you work your way back up, so you've got, see what I mean by pricing doesn't matter at all. 8,500, and then if you're going to play, let's see, sometimes I like the idea of playing teammates together. So, you could flip this build around a little bit and play instead of Blaney, play Kyle Busch, and then mix Austin Dillon with it. I'm going to put Gragson in this one as my 4th back there, but that would be a nice pairing to help out with a little more correlation in tournaments with Dillon and Busch. And then maybe you can work it with the Fords here with Gragson, Reagan, Blaney. You can do it that way as well. So we've got those 4. Again, pricing's not going to matter at all. You kind of work your way back up. You can look at doing it that way with some manufacturer stacks. So right now we've got Fords, 3 Fords and a Chevy. So maybe then if you're working your way back up into this tier, you're going to throw in a Chris Buescher and Keselowski or something and be done with that build. I think that's definitely doable. Leaves you 1,600 on the table, and you feel like you've got a really good build there. 3 Fords, 2 of them, all 3 would be the RFK team with Buescher, Keselowski, and Reagan. So really like that one. That's kind of where I would look towards for something like that for a single entry. I'll do one more, and then we'll hop on out of here. If you look at, let's do a little bit of a different manufacturer stack. So Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon. Start that one for Chevy with RCR. Let's see. Then we'll throw in LaJoy. And then maybe you go, and I expect a solid day for the Toyotas. And maybe we could go a Bubba Wallace. Let's see here. Hamlin's starting a little too far forward to me, but you could throw him in there too. Same with a lot of these Toyotas. Maybe you throw Martin Truex Jr. at 27th. And then you've got the last spot, and you can find you another one of the Toyotas, or maybe find another Chevrolet with Stenhouse. But I think that's kind of maybe how I would look at doing some of this stuff would be doing the Chevy, Toyota, Fords. They're all going to work together. And even if you zoom in on teams as well, that's going to probably work out for you at the end with finding guys who are working together. Just hopefully half of them don't get taken out by wrecks and things. So that's going to be the end for me today. Again, just kind of going through some build strategy there for you. If you have any questions, I'll be around for questions in the chat throughout the day. I'll have my final cores up probably late tonight or tomorrow morning sometime before the race. Probably do a couple different ones each week under the cores tab. Be sure to check us out. The links that are in the description of the video. Good luck to everybody this week, and let's take one down.